Hi, my name is Sukhjoot Singh and I'm 15 years old. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Even though I live in the nation's capital, I've noticed that many people really don't know who Sikhs are and where we come from, even though we are the fifth largest religion in the world. I began to ponder at this until I thought, what is a Sikh? What defines a Sikh? Well, I did some research and discovered some pretty interesting information. Well, in order to define a Sikh, you have to know what a Sikh is, literally. According to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, a Sikh is an inheritant of monotheistic religion of India founded about 1500 by Guru Nanak and marked by rejection of idolatry and caste. Well, this is good and fine, but what does being a true Sikh mean? Well, in Sikh Granth Maryada, Chapter 1, Article 1, the definition of a Sikh is any human being who faithfully believes in one immortal being, 10 gurus from Guru Nanak Sahib to Guru Gobind Singh Sahib, the Guru Granth Sahib, the utterances and teachings of the 10 gurus, and the baptism bequeathed by the 10th guru, and who does not owe any allegiance to any other religion is a Sikh. I decided to visit my local Gurdwara and ask my fellow Sikhs what they thought about Sikhi and the topics that surrounded it. I decided to sit down and interview some fellow Sikhs to get their views on the issues and challenges that are currently being faced in the Sikh community. Let's start off with an interesting one. How would you define a Sikh?
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੋ ਦਸਾਂ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਦੱਸੇ ਹੋਏ ਮਾਰਗ ਦੇ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਚਾ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਦਸਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਖੰਡੇ ਬਾਟੇ ਦਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਰਹਿਤ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਦੇ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਜੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਤੀਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ।
The literal meaning of a Sikh is a disciple. It's someone who follows the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Girt Karna, Naam Japana, Van Shakna. The ultimate goal of a Sikh is to take Amrit, as defined by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and wear the 5 Ks.
Someone who believes in the philosophy and prescribes to the teachings of all our 10 gurus and Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and strives to live a way of life that goes towards what the principles that our gurus instilled within us.
Somebody who believes in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, first of all, and then has follows all the teachings for all 10 gurus.
Sikh is somebody who's trying to be learning, always learning. The Sikh, is like student of learning. And second thing is define Sikh is just like anybody who's willingly to help anybody.
Essentially, it's an individual who bases their lifestyle off the teachings of the Guru Bani, through what all the gurus have taught us, essentially through the Guru Granth Sahib, and all parts of the Nitnem and all the other teachings that were offered to us through Shabas.
ਸਿੱਖ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਦਾ ਹੈ, ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇਵੀ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਪਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਦਾ, ਉਸ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਦਾ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਚਾ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈ। ਸਿੱਖ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਡੈਫੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਵੇਲੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਉੱਠਦਾ ਹੈ, ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿਰਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪਦਾ ਹੈ, ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਬੰਦਗੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਰਦਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੁੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈ।
What does Sikhi mean to you?
Sikhi comes from you. ठीक है, तुसी जीवन च की करदे हो? गुरु नानक देव जी ने की है, किरत करनी, वंड छकना ते नाम जपना।
Sikhi for me is a lifestyle. It's something that I do because it represents what I believe in and what I value in life, and that is the principles of Sikhism, which are living to your highest morality, your highest capabilities. Serving the Sangha is something that means a lot to me, and in my everyday life, in the work that I do, in my home life, with my friends. So I feel like living Sikhi is a good way for me to always remind myself to live my life in a certain way.
Often, we get confused and believe that we're born Sikh, but that's wrong. You have to make the decision to be a Sikh and live a Sikh lifestyle. It's a very difficult path to follow. In the long version of the Nansai Path, Guru Amar Das describes just how difficult this path is. Bhagatan ki chal nirali. The lifestyle of the devotees is unique and distinct. Chal nirale bhagatan keri bikham marak chalna. The devotee's lifestyle is unique and distinct. They must follow the most difficult path. Labh, lobh, ankar, taj, trisna bahut nahi bolna. They renounce greed, avarice, egotism, and desire. They do not talk too much. Kaniyo tikki valo nikki, et maruk jana. The path they take is sharper than a two-edged sword and finer than a hair. Seeing how Guru Amar Das warned us about this difficult path, why do you choose to continue to follow the path of Sikhi?
I chose to become a Sikh because throughout my upbringing, I went to a school in India. I was always surrounded by Sikhs. When I came back to America, I was actually living an American lifestyle. I was in college, and before that, I had been kindergarten. So I've always been a Sikh. Why I've stayed with it is because of the same things that we talked about before. Because Sikh values mean something very powerful to me. They're at the core of what I believe in. They're at the core of what I feel is living to my highest.
You tend to learn the importance of Waheguru in your life, and I think for myself, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned so much more that I don't think I'd really known about when I was younger.
Following Sikhi has certainly been a choice. Though I've been blessed to be born into religion, I didn't really truly embrace it until my early college experience, and prior to that, my year abroad as an exchange student, when I was contemplating actually cutting my hair and not actually following the Sikh religion, because for me at that time, a lot of Sikhism wasn't comprehensible, was difficult to understand. So for me, now Sikhism is a very important part of my life in terms of how I try to live my life and my teachings, the teachings of the Guru that I try to follow.
Do you feel it's hard to follow a Sikh lifestyle?
No. I was brought up in an area which was pretty diverse. A lot of Indians, a lot of Jews, a lot of Christians, Muslims, and Hindus. So in my town, it was pretty easy to follow Sikhism, but at times after 9/11, things became very hard. My friends who I thought were very close to me all of a sudden started thinking that maybe I'm involved in this thing as well. Because at that time, they didn't realize the difference between a Sikh and a Muslim and different types of turbans that they wear. Being a Sikh in this society nowadays has been hard. I have friends who've been through a lot of discrimination and hate crimes, but if we look at our past, look at our history of all the Singhs and Singh that sacrificed their life for us, we use them as a role model to keep pushing forward.
I think it can be, but I also think it really depends on the attitude. I think no matter what you do, you'll end up being a target of hate.
I like to be unique, and I like when people look at me, they say who this is. So they look it up, or they ask me questions. So that's more like knowledge for them, and knowledge sharing. For me, I like to be unique instead of being part of the crowd.
With living a Sikh way of life, I think perhaps in America it's difficult and challenging for some people, but as a part of your commitment to Sikhism and the way you practice Sikhism, all these external things are just part of your internal focus on Sikhism.
Living a Sikh lifestyle is especially difficult for the Sikh youth trying to take on the many aspects of living as a Sikh. Do you feel as if the youth know enough about the principles and values of Sikhi?
The youth I met, I believe they are very passionate and enthusiastic about following Sikh principles and the values of Sikhism.
No, I would not say they do. I mean, you ask any Sikh youth what they think about Sikh here. The best question to do is to see how a Sikh youth explains Sikhism to somebody else. What they say about Sikh to someone else. You'll hear words thrown around like monotheistic religion, respecting other religions, non-violence, defending the weakless, the defenseless. But really, they don't really understand the principles behind Sikh. See, there's all these arguments about whether or not there's what karma is and all these things, and it's people that young Sikhs don't understand. All they understand is, okay, Sikhis are people who wear turbans, people who go to Gurdwara every once in a while, maybe every Sunday if at most.
I think it all depends on the parents and what they instill with them from the beginning. When they go to school, they spend most of their time in the day at school, not at home. So they learn about American values, they learn from other kids. But when they come home, their parents also speak English to them. They don't really foster a Sikh environment. So I think it's important to sit your kids down every day and at least do Veda side with them and teach them about their history so they know what their forefathers and ancestors had went through so they could be here today.
If you look at parents and their kids' interactions with Sikhi, you see parents, they themselves will tell kids, okay, you guys should listen here, then you guys should do part, you should do this, this, and that. But then, they themselves, when they go to Gurdwara, are sitting in the langar hall. So what are the kids going to take about what is the kid going to see from this and expect what Sikhi is? They're going to think, okay, you go to Gurdwara, do Mata take for some unknown reason, and then you go sit in the langar hall and chill for 2.5 hours, and then go home. And that's not what Sikhi is. So I think part of how you see, when you do find kids that are into Sikhi, I think a lot of that has to do with how their parents' attitude towards Sikhi is, and parents that are actual faithful Sikhs and whatnot.
I'll be honest and say no. I think that people in our day-to-day lives, it's really difficult to communicate why we're Sikhs, why we live the way that we do. And sometimes you don't feel like people are interested.
You see less and less Sikh youth coming to Gurdwara, and more the people sitting in the Sangha are elderly. And what's going to happen to the next generation? That's the question. And how you do that is something I think every Sikh should be thinking about and should be really concerned with.
He's right. It's not enough to just identify these problems. We have the responsibility to resolve these issues. There are many easy ways to get involved in the Sikh community and inspire the Sikh youth. Do seva with your friends at Gurdwara. It's a great way to get involved and have some fun at the same time. Create seva projects that will get you and your fellow Sikhs involved. Learn some kirtan. It's a great way to start learning Gurmukhi and understanding Sikhism. If you want to go further into Gurmukhi, start a Gurmukhi class with your friends and teach other youth the importance of learning it. Any closing thoughts or final messages you would like to give out to the Sikh youth?
I think it's important for Sikh youth to hold their head high and never be ashamed of who they are. In schools it can be very tough. Kids will bully them and call them names and this and that. But it's important for them to hold their head high and get a good education.
Be proud to be who you are. Follow your heart, not the pressures surrounding you. And be proud. I mean, if you wear a pug, if you don't wear a pug, but follow what's in your heart and really live it. You know, don't hide behind what your family does or what your family doesn't do, or what your friends do and what your friends don't do, but do what feels right to you.
You need to stay strong. There's a lot of adversity that you're going to face as a Sikh.
You should be strong with your faith and don't give up.
Keep it real, first of all. As much as that sounds pretty generic to say, it is actually pretty difficult to do.
Try to live in Chadikla, to be very optimistic and try to embrace what Sikhi is about and focus really on the inner rather than the outer.
ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀਏ, ਪੰਜਾਂ ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਧਾਰਨੀ ਹੋਈਏ, ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਤਨਾ ਉੱਚਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਪਿਆ ਵੀ ਪਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਸ ਵੱਲ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਕਦੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਡੋਲੇ ਨਾ, ਸਾਡਾ ਕਦੀ ਐਸਾ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਚਰਨ ਬਣ ਜਾਵੇ ਕਿ ਲੋਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਕਹਿਣ, ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਾਸ ਆਉਣ ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਮੰਗ ਕਰਨ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਾਖਲ ਹੋਣਾ। ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਸਕੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਹੋਵੇ।
ਆਓ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸ ਸਕੀਏ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦਾ ਧਰਮ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
The only way to change the world is if you do it yourself. So go out and teach people about Sikhi and spread the word of our religion, just like Guru Nanak.